What's up, everybody? It's Dom Universe. Now, today I wanted to make an important video, and somebody been recommended me or suggested me to do this video, and I just been doing other stuff, but we gonna talk about this today. Now, I want to help people understand the ego. Now, for a lot of people, most people, your ego may be the reason you are in the situation you in now. It may be the reason you in the position you in now. Your ego is responsible for things like identifying. So it's just basically what you identify life with. But you got to realize something. You need to not identify yourself with your ego. You are not your ego. Your ego is just it identifies things. Like if you see something that's, and I quote, blue, you say, oh, that's blue. You see something that's round, you say, oh, that's a circle. You see certain things and you call it something, right? It's what you use to identify things. But really, it's what you basically, your ego is seeing through your two physical eyes, seeing the 3D realm. So it's just seeing shit that don't necessarily matter. This GMO life we live in on this planet. But it's also associated with fear and always wanting to be right. So just like with men, when you see a man who ego get hurt or they end up wrong, this could be anybody, they end up wrong in a debate and they still try to get their point across even when they're wrong. That's your ego coming in. The main and worst thing I could think that the ego do to people, that I really want people to stop from doing, is controlling their life. So let's say you a person who want to get into something, who want to do something big. You probably want to be a big artist, a musician. You probably want to be an actor. You want to do something big. You want to change the world or get paid from doing your talent. But every time you think about it, or you probably want to make YouTube videos or something, but every time you think about it, you probably stop yourself like, nah, it ain't gonna work out, or nah, that might be too much, or I'm not ready for that, etc. Your ego might be stopping you from working out. What I want you to do, because it's really not hard to stop doing this. One thing I learned over the past couple years, because self-improvement was one of the things, it was the main thing I was on, is self-improvement. And I had to learn how to get my ego out the way, because my ego was stopping me from doing things, just like it was stopping me from doing YouTube. So some people need to have an ego death. I'll talk about that in a minute. But when we talking about stopping your ego from getting in your way, you got to realize something. When certain things make you feel fear, because that is fear, when you telling yourself, nah, I'm not ready, or I don't think I can do it. Remember what I said. You have to believe in yourself when nobody else will. You have to be your own support system. So when you feel like, oh, you want to do something that's like, let's just big. You want to do something bigger than yourself, and you feel like you're not worthy of it, that's your ego enticing fear upon you. You gotta tell it, you can do things like say, I reject this thought, I reject that thought. People don't realize they can reject thoughts when they come, because you gotta remember, not all of your thoughts are yours. We share a collective consciousness with the universe, the multiverses, the microverse, which is inside of you, your macroverse. We share a collective consciousness with all people, with all humans, with all races. And when I say races, I mean different species and different stars on different planets. We share a collective consciousness. So when you get certain thoughts, they not always your thoughts. This is why you don't have to react to your thoughts. Now, another thing I learned throughout self-improvement is when you feel what you may call fear, you have to realize there is a such thing as fear, but we all have to someday face the fear, right? So instead of, one thing I learned, because I used to be into that whole social hierarchy thing about with the beta, omega, alpha, sigma, and I learned that what the best alpha thing to do is, or what alphas do, is they acknowledge that fear exists, but they go and they face fear. You get what I'm trying to say? Like, even though fear is there, you face it. Fear is supposed to be like, it's supposed to, basically, when you in a situation where you not used to it, basically you're becoming nervous, and then nervous becomes a gateway into fright or fear and being scared. But really, all nervous is just your soul becoming uncomfortable in a new situation. But people take that nervousness as fear because it make them feel something. Like, they may shake, they might feel anxious. All it takes is, you can say, I reject this thought, or just stand up and face the fear. Internally, when I got into situations like these where I had to face what is called fear, inside my head, I would do something like I would imagine myself standing up to a spirit called fear. And whenever I did that, I went and I faced whatever it is that was making me feel uncomfortable. So your ego is really, your ego really be pussy sometimes. And it be stopping you from achieving. And your ego, it may even tell you, like, you may have a bad habit and you want to quit, but your ego telling you, no, I can't live without this. Or let's say it's marijuana and you have a hard time quitting marijuana. Your ego probably telling you, nah. Or you probably don't like to be sober. And your ego, when you run out of marijuana, your ego tell you, go buy more marijuana. Because you got so used to being sober that your ego is used to identifying life when just high. So this is what I'm saying. Another thing I used to do to counteract my ego. When I first started getting into NoFap, you know how you have these random sexual thoughts out of nowhere? When a random sexual thought about porn or sex would pop into my head, I would say, fuck off of me, or just get the fuck out of here, inside my head. And it reprogrammed my brain. This might sound like it don't work. It might sound weird to some people. It really actually works. And it's the same method as telling yourself, I reject that thought. I used to say, fuck off me to my sexual thoughts. That's all it is. Like, you have power over your brain. You can't control your brain because your brain is infinitively moving. It's infinitively processed. It's always doing something. You can't stop it from working unless you shoot it or something. Just shoot yourself in the fucking head. But we not getting into that suicidal shit. Now, that's all you gotta do. Like, your ego, you don't have to identify with your ego. You're not your ego. Your ego, see, eventually, for some people, they may need to have an ego death. Like, here's something you can do to identify your ego or target it if you don't know how. Let's say you sitting in the dark. And you don't even have to be sitting in the dark. Just say you alone. Let's just say you alone. And you sitting in you sitting by yourself, you probably laying down, talking to your hair or talking to yourself out loud, and you tell yourself, I am dead, or I am not my ego, or my name is not, let's say your name is Josh. You telling yourself, my name isn't Josh. You remember I say pay attention to your feelings and thoughts whenever they arise, right? When you tell yourself things that you believe are true, when you contradict themselves to yourself, you're going to feel something inside of you that's telling you that's not true. So let's say you were sitting there telling yourself, I'm dead. I am dead. You're going to feel something inside of you basically tell you you're not dead. But when you keep on saying it, or you're fighting that ego, eventually the ego starts to stop what's the word? It will stop resisting. Some people ego too big to the point where people are they identify themselves with their ego so much they trapped in their lower 3 chakras. Your ego got a lot to do with your 3rd chakra, your sacral chakra. If you don't got the proper willpower, it's gonna take you a while to fight off your ego. But it's not like you have to fight the ego. I don't want you to make it something where you fighting yourself on the inside and you have like an internal conflict inside your microverse. Excuse me. Some people might not understand this logic. Hopefully you find the right piece of information and you able to put this together. But my greatest piece of advice to have more power over your ego is to stop identifying with it. Do those methods I told you. Like, what? Let me give you another example. This is what I do to fight off my ego, or not to fight off, to counter it. Because this is the same thing with what I say, like, when you have a bad thought. Let's say you always have a bad thought about getting in a car crash. What I would do is counter that thought with like a more positive thought, because those thoughts go to your subconscious. You don't want to make a reality more possible by giving it too much thought, too much energy, and having thoughts about thoughts. This causes depression and or anxiety disorder. So this is why I say. And another thing I also do is, if let's say I want to get up and work out though, right? This is another thing I do. Or if I feel like I want to do something, I need to do something, I got to get up and do it. Or I just have to get up and do it. What I would do, sometimes my ego would tell me, nah, I don't feel like it, or nah, do it later, something like that. I would counter that ego coming in by saying something like, in my head, I would say something like, fuck off me. That's just me though. Everybody not the same, so I know everybody or anybody who watching this, they gonna find their own way to implement this method, these methods, or this idea. But yeah, everybody work different, so my advice not gonna always work for everybody. Everybody don't have the same mind, so everybody process information different. But that's pretty much it. Dom Universe taking off. I love you all. Like, subscribe, peace.